Joel Miller is the builder of a 17-year marketing agency that defies Silicon Valley logic. So Joe believes that growth is not a scale or die approach, but rather that intentional leanness can actually be a competitive advantage rather than a limitation. So in this conversation, we are going to go deep into challenging that sustainable growth has absolutely nothing to do with headcount, with hustle culture, we've all heard and felt that, or sacrificing your life to scale. This is going to be fun. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, there we go. I mean, honestly, we've already got a little bit, controversial with this kind of pitch that, there are different ways of doing scale. It doesn't have to just be burning the candle at both ends, feeling the pain. There are kind of nicer, more comfortable, maybe more authentic ways of doing it. So we're going to go in deep into that part of the conversation. But I kind of want to hear a little bit. 17 years. So that is not a startup. 17-year agency. Kind of where did all that begin?
Sure. Well, I'm an identical twin, and we were born on leap day. The leap day part might not be important, but it's interesting nonetheless. And we're about 10 and a half right now. And we always wanted to work, I think, together. Like that maybe it's the fact that we were roommates, pun intended, that you just like spend so much time together and not everyone gets along like that, but we have. And I think we kind of just looked out and we're like, we can get people to pay us to do things. Like that was always fascinating to us, like collectively. And so we were always doing things like starting a lawn mowing business, and our dad worked for himself too. And our grandpa owned a store on State Street in downtown Chicago as well. So it also kind of runs in the blood. But we just like saw these opportunities to try things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But I think it just like solidified in our brains that if we can produce value for people, something they want right now, and they'll pay us for it, that's an exciting proposition. And so here we are, all these years later, still doing it.
So was service, do you think, and that kind of level of giving value but getting value back, do you think that was, as you describe it, in the blood? Do you think that was something that was just kind of innate in you both, or do you feel that could be learned?
Oh, it definitely can be learned. I think, that long-standing debate, nature versus nurture, which one is more prominent? And I'm like, do we have to pick a side? I don't know. I think it's important to understand our nature and how we were nurtured and have it be like a contextualizing, but don't let those things define you either. I mean, we all have parts of our stories that have negatively impacted us, and we have ones that have positively impacted us. But if you are able to look at your life and say, look, I can let go of the things I can't control, but the stuff I can control, I will take responsibility for, and I will come up with a hypothesis and a thesis about how I can progress my life forward to be what I would like it to be. And then you dump the stuff that doesn't work and push into the things that do. And that's sort of the entrepreneurial journey anyway, right? Like, I think that's kind of one of the most important things we can do as humans. And so it ties back. Yeah. Is it in the blood? Probably. No one ever told us that's what you should do. Nonetheless, like when you grow up and you watch your dad forging his own way, and you hear the stories of your grandpa and all the things he had to go through to run his business, maybe it does just plant those seeds. But by no means were we on a set of rails like a train, right? Like we could have gone every direction you could imagine. We actually didn't attend college either. And but we went to a college prep high school. That was like, one of the bragging rights of the school is how many people go to university. And so we kind of broke that mold too. And the point is like, it wasn't necessarily just about following the path that's set out for you. You get to make your own choices.
So where did back in the day, where did the permission come from? Because I guess it could have been sort of, I guess, from the family because they'd been there, seen it, done it, and obviously would have had upsides, downsides, all the challenges. They would have kind of lived through it. So there was almost a recognition, I guess, within the family that it's tough, but you can do it. Was that kind of where permission came from, or did you kind of both seek that for yourselves?
That's a great question. And it kind of is touching on something I'm thinking a lot about lately. I have a 11 and 8-year-old, so I'm, thinking about parenting and what it means and how you transition from having these toddlers and babies to they're getting older, allowing them a sense of exploration and agency with being a guide maybe more uh, instead of the police department. Anyway, it's something I'm working through a lot. And so the idea of that permission, I actually look back to what my parents did, and I do see a lot of things I want to emulate because they let us explore so many ideas. I mean, I had so many hobbies as a child. It was crazy. Their one rule was if you try it, we want you to follow through with it, at least to some extent. Like, you're not going to just start things and dump them nonstop because you'll never learn anything if you do that. But if you're interested in something, try it out. So we were like, I went through a season where I sewed a lot of things. We went through a season where we made a ton of origami. Obviously we had these business ideas like mowing the lawn. And so our dad helped us make flyers and we sent them out. So I think there was like a tacit permission, maybe not an express one in our household that, yeah, explore, figure out what you want to do and how you want to present yourself to the world. And we'll guide you, but we're not going to tell you what to do. Like you get to figure that out. And that's definitely been ingrained in me. And I want to pass it on to my kids too. I think it's so important.
It just feels really healthy, doesn't it? And really kind of just light and sort of really expressive, allowing you to kind of almost sort of ease into your own lane. You sort of called it, being in your lane or sort of the guardrails. And it kind of, just sort of feels a really sort of healthy thing to be allowed and to kind of, just sort of find your way into that. I mean, it's interesting, but back in that time then, sort of, I guess, pre-agency, did you have kind of almost like a big vision? Was there this sort of big dream about what might be possible, or were you just literally just trying lots of stuff without a particular direction?
I think just trying lots of stuff, especially like maybe as we kind of headed into our high school years, here we started having some ideas of it was always creative. So like it started really becoming creative work. And because our dad did what he did, he was a cinematographer, director of photography. So we started going on shoots with him and we saw what he did. And then we got one of the very early on in the life cycle of this technology, he bought a nonlinear digital editing system, back when it was like 60 grand or something. It was crazy, not just a laptop and Final Cut Pro or Premiere or whatever. And so I think actually one of the stories that pops out with that is that the guy came and installed it. We interviewed him all day while he was installing it. I think we might have been like 8 or 9, maybe 10. And by the time our dad had gotten home from a job he was on, we had taken that dog movie, Beethoven, and digitized it and tried re-editing it. So we were like all in on this, like, this is fun. Like, what can we do with this? So I don't know, like somehow both of our brains have always sort of worked like that. Like, oh, here's something interesting. Let's start seeing if we can break it or make something with it. And so it's more just, I think the word explore just comes up. So we started doing creative things, getting paid for some of that stuff. We made like wedding slideshow videos for, family friends, and they would pay us for that. And that seemed amazing because it's like, well, we could go work at Old Navy, or they'll pay me $700. I mean, it took a lot of time, but they'll pay me $700 to scan their photos and make a video. And so I think like in some ways the market ended up defining what we're doing today, because and it's sort of like has roots in the fact that we don't niche down now. We don't say we're only the digital marketing web designers, Google ad, whatever, all these things we do. We only do that for lawyers. We're the ones who do it for lawyers, or we're the ones who do it for, like, everyone says to do that, and we just haven't done that. It's worked super well for us because we're more interested in solving our clients' problems and helping them achieve outcomes, the things that the next goal they have. And we'll do that and explore however works for them, right? I'm not going to come in with a prescription. So we learn to do all kinds of new things every year and apply it to our clients. And then are super like, sometimes it doesn't work. And there's that learning curve, but we do it in a partnership with them.
It's also really kind of refreshing ways. This is almost a little bit maverick, dare I say it? Is that how it feels? Because this is not following the rule book, is it?
No, it's definitely not. And I had to go through a season where I felt a little bit guilty that we weren't doing, you read all these articles. Another blog I mean, now it's a Substack probably, or where someone has the definitive word on how you're supposed to operate in the world in these types of service businesses, and it just never looks like what we're doing. And so years ago, I had to go through that and be like, oh wait, I'm not in this other person's story, and I shouldn't I should be conscious of how we're presenting ourselves and how we're building our business. But that doesn't mean I have to mirror how other people are doing it. I can choose what it looks like for us, and the success is following. And so I don't have to feel guilty that it doesn't look the normal way or doesn't follow the neat and tidy blog post that seems to be overconfident in its advice.
And it kind of feels a little bit vanilla, generic, kind of almost predictable to follow that route. Whereas what you're doing, I would suggest, is probably going to uncover opportunities that the typical kind of service agency wouldn't be able to do, because they're following the pattern, and the pattern is only going to give you what everybody else has got, because it's the pattern that everybody else is following. So, I mean, do you find that you uncover little kind of nuggets of gold by doing things differently like this?
Oh, definitely. I mean, even just finding those new things that are interesting to us to do for our clients. If everything's sort of on the table, and we talk about our longest term, most rich partnerships with our clients, we talk like this too, and tell them, honestly, this is like what we find fascinating and interesting, and we want to do whatever we can produce that's valuable to you and helps you get to that goal or outcome. And so you start asking questions that a digital marketing agency shouldn't ask, because we're not the sales team, right? We're not sales advisors. And yet we're getting in there sometimes and doing sales enablement training with some of our clients. It's not, no one brought me in for that, but because I asked interesting questions and they had responses that they didn't actually know the answers to, they didn't have something solidified. I said, well, this is something I do a lot in our work. I have to do a lot of sales. I have to navigate how to position and how to communicate value. So we worked through it together, and I have presented their sales team and built tools for them to help their process and to be better sellers. So I think that's interesting. I don't know. I don't really want to wake up every day, and there's plenty of this anyway, right? Running a business is like this, but I don't want to wake up every day and know exactly all the things I'm going to do, that they'll just be the same things I did 3 months ago. Then I'm probably going to quit and find something else to do, because I want to be stretched. I want to grow. I want to learn new things, and I want to learn about new businesses, which is part of the reason why we also don't niche down into a certain space or vertical, because we're like, look, it's so fun to ask questions and be like, wait, how does this work? How does your business run? Have you thought about this thing? And we don't have the curse of knowledge because we know nothing about it yet. And so it can really be a very healthy and interesting relationship that we forge.
I'm getting a sense here, Joel, that you treat your clients' businesses almost as though they're your own. It's almost like you're looking to uncover the magic inside there. So you'll get down deep and really kind of, research and look into the details. So that it's almost like it's the kind of thing you do for your own business. And yet, obviously, it's client's business. But it feels different, this approach. It feels very personal.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's part of my proposal usually, and our intro calls with a client is like, we really want to feel like we're part of your team. And not just saying that. That's really easy to say. I want to be and ownership is sort of like this buzzword. One of the reasons I actually left my only other job that I've had, which was working at Apple Retail, was because they used the word ownership. Sorry, I love Apple, but and actually we're great for retail. They taught us a lot, but they used the word ownership, but then didn't really mean it. That's what I discovered. And someone like me, that drives you crazy, right? You're like, you can't keep telling me to own everything, and then when I bring a new idea forth, you say that's just not how we do it. That's not actual ownership. That's just a corporate buzzword. Anyway, so I want to feel what I consider the genuine version of that for my clients. I want to be like, oh, okay, the leads are down this month. That bothers me as much as it bothers you. Let's find out. Let's test some new things. Here's some new ideas. Here's the things I would do if I were in your shoes. And I ask myself that question a lot for them. What would I don't want to just be a vendor. I'd like to be part of the team and actually help them along the way with things that only someone who's actually caring about it would think of, I think.
So it seems like there's a lot of energy required here. I'm curious, could you have done this alone, or would you have needed your brother to be kind of with you on this journey? Because doing business like this, where it isn't just check boxes and,
Right.
completing stuff and putting the invoice in and yeah, everybody's happy. This is a real kind of commitment, isn't it? So a lot of energy expenditure, even though it's fun, and you
Right.
clearly enjoy it. I can just tell by your face that you love doing what you do. But could you have done this alone?
No, absolutely not. In fact, and I think that is like a competitive advantage of our twinship. I don't know. The twinergy. I don't, there's like, we know enough about how the other person thinks where we don't have overhead of certain communication. And yet we have different enough perspectives that we can challenge each other and or brainstorm in a way that it's not, I don't feel like I'm brainstorming with myself. And so I think it's been extremely beneficial to our clients and to our growth that we have this sort of, we can have a meeting of the minds in some cases and say, all right, what did I miss? Or same thing for him. And that something completely new comes of that conversation. And so no, I don't think I could do that in a vacuum. And as fun as AI is sometimes to treat like that, it also doesn't give you what the person you've been with for 42 years and sort of knows exactly where you're going to not notice something, a weak point, and say, look, I already know the thing you're probably not looking at. And so here it is. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. I don't think we could have done it
Yeah.
either of us alone. Yeah.
I ask the question because I guess a lot of people here listening to this would think, I want Joel's life. It sounds amazing. He's
Right.
obviously working with clients, getting paid, clearly successful. It's all making a big positive difference to, to the world. And yet, actually, I need to find somebody who I can actually do this with. I don't have a twin. So therefore, I've got to find a business colleague or maybe a friend who's at the same kind of stage in their career or their personal development where they want to take that leap. Maybe they're both employed and they're thinking, is the time right? So is there, do you think, a sort of a similar, is the similarity between the two of you the thing that somebody like that should be looking for, or is it a difference, or is it a balance between the two? Because I'm just almost looking for this sweet spot for a business partner. Who would somebody listening to this thinking, I want to take the leap, but I need somebody alongside me? Do I look for somebody similar, different, or is there a balance?
I'm going to have to, just from personal experience, go with the balance, I think. And actually, having watched a lot of businesses, I'm sure some people listening and watching, and you probably have seen plenty of businesses implode, and from just the interpersonal part of it. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like a marriage. I hate to trot that out, but like you're, if you're committing to some kind of long-term agreement with another person, there has to be a certain amount of symmetry there. But if you're so much alike, one, you probably will not effectively communicate or fight or argue or refine each other's thinking because, and it's probably actually just ultimately really, really frustrating because there's not, it's just like getting into a disagreement with yourself and it's really hard. You blame the other person for all the things that really are your problems. I think that happens a lot when people are a little too similar. And yet, you need enough similarity so that you can be aligned on where we're headed and goals and strategy and the general zeitgeist of your of your business. And so, and I'd say that for a marriage relationship too. I've been married actually for about as long as we've been in business, so 18 years coming up. And I think that same thing is held true. I mean, there's some clear differences, but so I think it's got to be a combo. Like find someone you can be aligned with, but not so much that it's irritating to you because you see your own flaws in them, and but also who can sharpen you, and they're not afraid to say, "Look, here's something new to look at and explore and examine, both in yourself and in our business."
Hmm. Yeah, so it sounds quite a nice, neat balance there. It's kind of
I think,
goals, it's preferences, it's values. I think the values thing is really critical there, isn't it?
yes.
Because otherwise, you might not see it in the short term. Those first few clients, you can probably
No, yeah.
just ride along on the excitement. But then over time, if the values are different, it's like,
Right.
oh, this doesn't now necessarily feel, again, it'd be like a relationship, wouldn't it? Personal
Yeah.
relationship. The values kind of almost let you drift apart because you're not viewing the world similarly, are you then?
Right. And we saw that with our dad, who worked for himself almost his whole career. But there was a season where he met two other guys and they said, we should start a company together. Right. And this is back when capital investment in video and film was quite high. I mean, it still can be, but it was just inherently high at this time. So they bought all this gear together and structured it all up. And then at the end of the day, they had different values. They had different things that they were aiming for. And what ended up happening is that our dad was working all the time to pay all of the gear expenses, right? And some of the guys were doing different levels of work, but not what they had initially agreed upon. And so it had to dissolve after a lot of tensions and is anything going to change and all the things that have to come with that in those seasons. And I'm not sure if it could have been explored to the point where they would have known ahead of time. Sometimes these things just happen. And yet you kind of look back at it and you go, oh, this is probably a fundamental mismatch that was there on some level before this ever started.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, really? And I think what we're trying to do here, I guess, in this sort of conversation is kind of, even if we affect just the one single person who says, this is now making sense to me. I can now take that leap of faith and actually decide to do that side hustle, but do it professionally. Or I was looking to go into this particular sector and now I'm kind of feeling the confidence to do it. Or I've got this business and I'm a solopreneur, but actually now I want to start scaling it. So therefore, possibly rather than taking lots of headcount on, lots of extra resource, I could maybe now partner with somebody who can help me with the understanding of how do I move to the next scale or to the next level of size or scale of business. Was that something that was ever kind of in your conversations, this whole idea of growth before you realized actually we can do it without the overhead? Had you kind of previously thought at any point, oh, if we take people on, we're going to be able to grow?
When you start out, I think you're just excited that people will pay you for something and that it's kind of working a little bit, right? And so like for us, this transition happened slowly because the first handful of years, it's just that like getting people to know we exist, getting them to trust us. For us, a big part of it was moving from hourly billing because you just sort of think that's how it has to be done. And every like, at that point in our world, you're working for a lot of other agencies because they need practitioners, people who can execute to do some of the work. And they're all wondering, how do what do you charge per hour? So for us, it's like with transitioning out of that to value pricing. How do we get out of that conversation that we should all be tracking our time like time is money because it isn't. It's valuable, but it isn't money. And so like we had to move from that season of just like, this is great, it's starting to work, to, okay, what does this actually look like? And in those conversations, so many people would ask, and this was probably the clarifying thing, when are you going to start hiring people? Sounds like you're making enough money now. When are you going to start hiring people? And so in that, we started watching very closely our friends who own their own agencies with employees and watch what they were going through and started thinking, is that what we want? Do we want to be in the people management business or do we want to do the work for our clients? And obviously you can sometimes balance those things, but it gets intrinsically different when you have employees. And so it became like something that was forced by having to answer the question to other people essentially. And the answer quickly became, I don't think we want that. I don't think. And then we watched also how we would come into these relationships with our clients and we would be the saviors of it. So they would be like, we just got out of this horrible relationship with a 50-person agency and they're coming to just a two-man shop and they're saying, can you help us transition out of this? And as we watched what happened in the story that we were inheriting, we realized that so often that model is you get sold by a sales team or maybe the owner, and they're on the first call and everything sounds great. And then you get passed off once you sign to the project manager, but they're probably gonna, if you stay with them for 3 years, you might have 3 project managers because that position does that a lot. And they're gonna delegate the tasks down to the developer and the designer and the ad guy, but you may never even meet those people. They're probably a lot of the time 1099 contractors anyway. So, so it's not as stable as you think when you hire the 50-person agency. Uh, and and then in that, it's like that game of telephone that the kids play, where they start off with one word and by the end it's potty talk, right? Like you start off with the thing you ask your agency to do, and by the time it goes through those layers, it's not exactly right. And then you have to do more work to get to the actual result. And we just watched that and went, I want to show up on the calls, still ask the questions, come up with the idea, see if we can execute it, hold myself responsible for what happened next, and then move forward together from there. And I just didn't see that as a possibility with having employees.
It's fascinating to kind of hear you describe it that way. And again, that real contrast with, again, the typical textbook model of how you grow is by head count. But there clearly has to be a physical limit. You love what you do. You clearly got a passion. You smile every time you describe serving a customer. So therefore, I know that it kind of is really meaningful to you, which is amazing. It's really, really powerful. But there has to be a ceiling because, as you said, time isn't money, but time is finite. So you only have,
Yes.
as Joel Miller, you only have a certain amount of hours that you can actually work. You've got a family, you've got other things in your life. So you are restricted, are you not, by the number of hours in any day? Can you scale with that?
Yeah, yes. I mean, here's the thing is that that ceiling where I thought it existed has shifted so many times now over the years that I'm not confident where it is. Almost every year I think, well, that was probably it, and I would be happy if we could stay around here for the rest of our lives. And then I run the numbers at the end of the year, not like I know about it before then, but I run the numbers at the end of the year and I go, another 14% year over year? What? How? And the answer to that, and I don't know where I would tend to agree with you, just like logically, there has to be a ceiling to that. And yet we haven't hit it yet. And so to me, what it says is that people will pay a wide range of prices for a lot of different services or goods or whatever it is. And the expansion that you can do by finding more valuable things to produce for the right kinds of people has a much higher limit than I think is readily apparent. And like the thing I always think of, it's one of my favorite like value pricing analogies or metaphors is something like a Rolex, right? It keeps time, and so does a Timex. So we have these things, they both do the function. No one buys the Rolex just because it keeps time. And you certainly don't show up to the Rolex dealer or however they're sold and ask, did it take you 50 times as many hours to produce this product or whatever it would be, 5,000? It could be a lot of more time than it did to make the Timex. No, the Rolex buyer does not care about how much time it took to create that thing. They care about the status that comes with owning one. They care about the symbol of achievement it is to themselves, not just how other people look at it. So there's all these other things, and they're willing to pay 50 grand for something that has the same function as a $50 watch. And to me, I look at that and I go, well, is the person who buys the Rolex insane or stupid or an idiot? No, they've picked that thing as valuable to them. And so my job as a business owner is to figure out if I'm finding that right value mix for the people I'm serving, and then can therefore charge more money, and everyone wins. I profit more, and if I've positioned it correctly, they know that they're profiting too, and no one's sitting around trying to count it all up and wonder if it was worth it.
And that's the key, isn't it? This has got to be a win-win. I mean, it goes full
Right.
circle back to your sort of initial description of how you serve customers. They have to feel like they're winning, but also you do, because it is a real partnership, isn't it? When you're actually trying to sell something to somebody, there's a buyer, there's a seller, and it's kind of a very different transaction. Whereas actually you're looking for a win-win kind of value generation right the way through this, aren't you?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, and when I mentor people who are just coming up, I'm constantly trying to impress upon them that if they don't understand and don't help their client or potential client understand what they're getting from the relationship as tangibly as possible. There are intangibles too, of course, but then they're always going to have a hard time requesting what they're worth because the client could have no idea. Most clients don't know when you ask what they're expecting to get out of it. Shockingly, you're like, okay, we're going to make you a new website. Well, what's going to change in a year if you have a new website? Well, something. We need one because our one's old and ugly. Okay, well, that's fine, but let's try to actually define what you're after. And if we don't do this work, will things be materially worse too? So you can kind of define that value both from what you get and the the negative consequences that you avoided. But if I can do a good job of that, then I'll have the cheat sheet for the proposal about based on their exact pain points and their exact goals that help me tell them this is how I'm going to do this, and I think it's going to work, and I'm going to charge less than you're going to get back from it, but I'm going to charge way more than the Facebook comment thread on a website, like a WordPress website group would say, because I've seen this. Once I was scanning through and someone was like, you charged a client $3,000 for a 5-page website? That's highway robbery. I do that for 500. And I read it and I went, that's funny. I've done that for 25,000. It's like, so again, did the person who paid that to us think they were getting ripped off? No, because we helped them achieve their goal, and it was actually definable, and we could present that as a fact. Anyway, so there's there's a lot of layers there and a lot of stuff that we have to get over in our own minds in order to be able to present ourselves confidently like that to the people you're selling, to the people you're serving, more importantly.
And doing it that way, it feels to me then that there is no business too large, business too small. It feels like as long as you're doing that value equation at both ends of the spectrum here, you can do the same kind of approach because everybody's getting value. And that
Right.
if that is the ultimate filter here, you can do it to a single person, business all the way through to a multinational, big international corporate. I mean, they would all still be actually valuing what you bring in the
Right.
same kind of way. Am I right with that? This is totally scalable.
Oh, definitely, and that's been true of us. I mean, I think in the same year that we worked for, it's different price points than we're at now for a lot of reasons. But in the same year that we did a project for Pitney Bowes, which is a Fortune 500 company, just for a division of them, of course, because they're huge. But and in that same year, we did some marketing and a website for a plumber down the street, essentially. And so and both of them were worth it for us for different reasons. So yes, yeah, it completely becomes like agnostic, I guess, of who you're trying to target, as long as those two things can be clearly defined for both parties. And that works for us too. We do a lot of nonprofit work or work with some churches too. And when we see what they're doing as a net benefit to the world, and so sometimes we charge them a lot less than a business client. And so there can be other wins there and other profits, if you will, from our side, where I go, okay, well, you help orphans find families not just anywhere in the world, but in their country. That I can charge you less for that because, man, I'm I'm helping. So like it doesn't all have to be linearly defined either, just by cash. There can be other factors, but again, I think that value, that's the key part. That's what I'm evaluating, is how is that being defined and met on both sides.
So with this approach, then, I mean, I guess one of the questions that I'm sure a lot of people are saying, go on, Neil, ask Joel, because we need to know, is with such a human-centric business and the kind of the style of work that you do, is there a place do you see for AI? Because that would be the natural other way or another way of doing this scaling, of kind of doing your service a lot quicker, probably a lot more efficient. Do you feel that within a very human-centric business, AI still has some kind of role?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think it can be. I'm very much of the mind that tools have to be treated differently, but they don't matter in the sense that if you can do something more efficiently uh, than you could yesterday because of a tool, it's probably a no-brainer to use it. Now, here's the thing, though. the human part is the most important part, and it's the ultimate filter. And that's the like kind of almost missing from the conversation, I think. We have a lot of people who are sitting around obsessed. Is that AI? I need to put it through a detector. I need to find out, and then wondering if it's less than because of it. Well, it might be, or it might not be. There's still an operator at the end of the day who's sitting there interfacing with it. And you actually have to decide, one, if you trust that person, that's a big part of it. But two, is what it produced, is how they filtered that content true? Is it accurate? Does it serve its purpose in the context that it's being used in? And that's where I want the human element to never go away. And it's so important. And I don't necessarily think that it matters if AI did it. Like, no one was asking before, oh, do you have a ghostwriter for your blog? Or was it edited by somebody? Like, does that make it worse as long as the human did it? When I think of like coding, I'm like, well, there's frameworks that help me do certain things faster in the coding world. Was that more pure for some reason before an AI could pump out some of that in 20 minutes? Or it kind of gets into this, like, would it be better if I wrote my own language? Do I have to go back to that? Is it, if you own a sandwich shop, if you don't make your own bread, is the sandwich worse? It might be or might not be. You have to define what those things are. But the point is that the humans get to decide these things, and it's still the same with AI. And so I think using it without that filter would be foolish, but using it with the human layer intact, it is actually brilliant. And I think it offers a lot of opportunity that wasn't there 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So if you're listening to this and you haven't gotten into AI, what I want you to do is to hone the human layer, your filter. Get better at all the core tasks of the thing that you want to use it for, so that it's particularly your voice and worldview in what you put out there, and stop worrying about if it's pure enough because I used AI to get there.
That's really interesting. So starting with AI from the human perspective, not from the, oh, what can I do with it? What pretty pictures or videos can I make?
Right.
Actually beginning with almost putting it in its place, I guess, is really what you're saying, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. Right. It's, and I think it's like, I don't know, this isn't a fully formed analogy, but like, it's like if you met a savant, someone who was just an expert in so many topics, right? But then you come to find out that they're 14 years old, but they know so much more about a lot of things than you do about those things. You will absolutely not take what that 14-year-old says and how they want to direct you at face value, because you intrinsically know that 14-year-olds don't have the world and life experience to accurately guide almost anything. Well, I think the AI is kind of the same thing. It knows a lot more about a wide range of topics than I do. And so there's things I can learn from it. And yet I need to, again, apply my 42-year-old brain to it and say, here's also what I know, how I've experienced the world, and what I'm trying to do right now. And so thank you for your input and help in refining these ideas, or shaping what I'm doing, or bouncing things off of it. But I still need to guide it. I still need to be that ultimate place the buck stops.
Yeah, and I want to put people in contact with you, Joe, because I think, the amount of kind of sort of stuff that you're producing, obviously a lot of the work that you're doing, I mean, it goes beyond, I mean, it's a lot more philosophical than your average agency. I mean, I think probably everybody's gathered that right here, right now. It's very clear. But you're obviously, you're producing content and you're giving sort of people inspiration, either if they want to come down this whole kind of agency service route, or just to really kind of get them thinking more creatively, I guess, about their own role or kind of purpose in working life. So I'd like to connect them with you. Where should they go?
They can head to our website, theskyfloor.com, and there's a tab at the top which might be the most interesting, called Ideas. That's our blog. And you can find over 300 posts from over the years there, with a lot of this kind of thinking as I work through it real time. I love being wrong. and I like to update things too. So go check that out, and you can subscribe. There's a start page where you can reach out if you want to talk. And the truth is like, sometimes people reach out and we're not a fit for work. I'm still love to try to help point someone in the right direction, because I think we all win when that happens. So reach out. I'd love to talk with you.
Wonderful. And I think everybody, you've realized, I'm sure, from this conversation that Joel has amazing energy, and yes, we'll almost certainly be able to see the issues or the challenges that you have. So just have that conversation. So I would yes, really encourage you to reach out. Joel, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, you've given me a lot to think about. So really, thank you.
Thank you again for having me.